Back on the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell in your afternoon drive. Joining us now on the Bobby V's hotline, the one and only Tim Brando. He's been covering all the different sports for over 40 years. He's now with Fox Sports, and he does college basketball, college football, and he is one of the best in the business. And you sent me something you put out there on X just talking about, Dan Hurley, knowing the family, knowing Dan Hurley is an East Coast guy. I think $70 million is a lowball offer for this guy having to give up everything to go to the Lakers. Your thoughts on Dan Hurley coming back to UConn?
Okay, Rob, I know you were a big league pitcher and you won a World Series, but I have to ask you this question, okay? I have to ask you this question. At what point does $5 million in stores become so much less than $12 million in Los Angeles? Just help me out.
Well, first of all, because he's not going to have the same kind of authority, and he'll be making the same as bench warmers. LeBron's making 47. Anthony Davis is making 41, and you want me to give up where I can bench somebody if they look at me the wrong way or don't have a good practice. You can't bench LeBron. You can't bench Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is going to want load management. You've got so much politics. I lived in L.A. for 10 years, Tim. So it's not just it's just not the money. And trust me, $12 million doesn't go a long way in L.A., by the way.
I agree. And I got my lifestyle adjustment when I moved to Connecticut from Baton Rouge in 1986. Okay? So I know.
But I'm just saying, if it were like $100 million and it's a no-brainer, because we talked about $100 million all last week, and they just signed a $76 billion TV contract. They've got the money. Yeah,
they do. I think though that the money, even if it had been $100 million, this is where my hopefully and my tweet, my post today on X was more about and was brought from the prism of relationships and knowing how Bobby Hurley Sr. would have approached something like this and he had many opportunities to go to college when he was at St. Anthony's and never went. And this isn't to say that Dan is just like Dad, okay, because he's not. But I do think that, and the early returns that I got on this, which were before the trip out to see Pelinka and Jeannie Buss, were that the wife was all in, that she was okay with this. So Dan, it's your, Danny, this is your ball game. Let's go. Let's give this a look, which I thought was very important, and frankly scared the hell out of me. As you know, I love the college game, all right, and I loathe the NBA, every aspect of it. And there's a cynical side of me that wants to say, okay, this was all about what? In the end, perhaps everybody getting what they want. The Lakers knew they probably wouldn't get him, but in order to justify hiring J.J. Redick with no prior experience, they can at least say they went after this era's version of Mike Krzyzewski, which they did 20 years ago and failed. Okay? So they made this choice to go in that direction. That's the cynical side, journalistic side, if you will, of my thoughts on this. Who better than Wojnarowski to break the story? Because as great a reporter as he is, and he's one of the finest, all right, he's still an NBA tout, and he's going to do everything he can to make the Lakers as an organization look like they just gave every imaginable offer. They did everything they possibly could. You'll never hear Woj say anything remotely close to like what you just said, which, by the way, I agree with what you just said. But the reality is the NBA is not college basketball. Danny Hurley's psyche and his personality is one that, frankly, at this big-time level that he's in, he only grew comfortable within in the last 24 months. He had to get that national championship to calm down. And he's gone, and I said this in my post if you read it, I don't know of anyone who's transformed himself personally and professionally in the last 4 years, from ages 47 to 51, any more than Danny Hurley. And I say that based on my contact with him and being around his family and doing a ton of UConn games, as you guys know I have. So this was just a feel thing for me. I had no way of knowing what direction it was going to go in. But I will say this, because, in full disclosure, I'm a college athletics advocate. okay, and the sport, all things college, has gone through hell these last few months. And it will continue to go through hell until toe meets leather and we get the first tip-off, because only then does all the other crap go away, because all we care about is the game once the game gets started. But there's so much crap with NIL, the portal. Everyone wants to just throw dirt all over college athletics. But in truth, if you go into that little area of Storrs, Connecticut, I mean, it is nirvana for Danny Hurley right now. Absolute nirvana. You got a group of coaches that you all trust, a couple of which have head coaching experience. You have a family that's within an hour of you that can see you anytime they want. And you have a team that has so completely bought into everything that he's done from a basketball standpoint that he just needs to say the right things at the right time, because they already know where they're going and instinctively play the way Danny Hurley wants them to play. All of that is thrown out, and he has to start all over again when dealing with LeBron and his cronies, and that's what it would have been. So that's why I felt as I did. But I will say this, the bigger story is that not only was what his decision was today good for UConn, it was tremendous for college athletics as a whole, college basketball in particular as a whole, because we would have been looking at all of college athletics for the first time since the Great Depression not having either the returning championship coach in football or the returning championship coach in basketball for the first time since the Great Depression.
How much does it help the Big East?
Big time. Huge. I mean, you put them right in there with UConn, then the league, and certainly all of college basketball. And I mean, it was, I know it's a bigger story there, because in your mind, because all politics is local, and politically it would have been very difficult on everybody there, on Benedict, on everybody involved in UConn athletics. It would have been really tough because, you know, the new deal wasn't done. I mean, imagine if he does go and he takes that money. People would have immediately said, why didn't you have the deal done? He's won 2 in a row. Okay, this absolves so much in one fell swoop. And life on that campus and at that institution is going to be so much better as a result of this, because even with those 2 national championships, you know how people are. As much as East Coasters aren't excited about maybe the West Coast lifestyle, trust me, as a flyover state's Southern guy, okay, I'm often in a position where I like to tell people that are fans of Big East basketball, and specifically UConn fans, hey, man, listen, you need to chill out some. It's going to be okay. You know what I mean? It's going to be okay. And so it's good news all the way around. But I think that the story this time isn't just in your area of the country. It's not in the tri-states area only. This is not just a Big East story. This is a story that had he chosen to go to the NBA and to the Lakers specifically, it would have been the death nail to college basketball, a sport that has been on life support for the last 3 decades, and particularly since the NBA invoked its one and done and allowed players when they were 19 to come in. College basketball gets credit for screwing itself in a lot of ways, deservedly so. The NCAA has done a lot of damage. But when fans go off about the one and done, well, those were NBA decisions that college athletics and the NCAA allowed the NBA to dictate. Okay? It is time that people involved in college athletics realize that the NBA has never been your friend and hasn't been for a long, long time. And you've been doing what? Serving up players for them for free. You've been developing their talent for absolutely free.
And you nailed it. And we're talking to Tim Brando from Fox Sports. And I wasn't trying to be disrespectful about the money, by the way. But when I was out there, I was telling Ben when I lived there,
yeah,
they disrespected Phil Jackson and his 11 NBA title. When Kobe was a free agent and he blew out his Achilles, the fans went ballistic. They did not want him, 5 championships later, did not want him re-signed for $48 million. They went ballistic. So, I mean, going back to Krzyzewski 20 years ago, by the way, it was 5 years, $40 million. And Mike said, if your heart's not all in it, there's no reason to accept the deal, and that's why he chose Duke. He said, "My heart's 100% at Duke."
Yeah, and he had the best of both. He had the best of both worlds with USA basketball anyway.
Exactly.
So he was, why go through that? Why go through that?
My question is the difference in sports. You've watched the NBA evolve to where it is now, and the branding of these guys, and to where they're. I mean, I remember talking to B.J. Armstrong 30 years ago on the Bulls, and he said there's 12 different guys in here. We don't even speak to each other. It's like a boardroom. I can't even imagine what it's like today. What do you feel like? And I'm coming from it like being in L.A. Like L.A. today, they're breathing a sigh of relief that he turned the job down. So they're thinking, hey, we're going to get J.J. Redick, we're going to get this guy, we're going to get this guy. So they were already with like, oh, we're going to bring this college guy in. Their belief is that L.A. is number one in everything that they do. They're better than everybody. That's why I moved back to Connecticut. My wife couldn't stand it. We didn't want to raise our daughter out there. But that being said, could he have been successful had he taken the job?
Oh, yeah, he could have been, but he likely would not have been. And in my mind, it's not worth the risk. To your point, there was no way Pelinka and Buss were going to give him, everything that he would want in terms of control of basketball operations. And that, to me, that's an absolute must if you're going to coach the way Danny Hurley wants to coach. Okay, he must have complete control. He is one of those coaches that's old school in that way. He was raised that way. It was my way or the highway with his dad, and the people that he played for in college, similar story. He saw it when he was playing at Seton Hall with PJ and was relegated. I mean, that's the way players like him and coaches that have come up like him into the college game were raised, and it would have been completely different. And by the way, LeBron definitely tried to help Pelinka and Buss out by saying, well, I love the way his team plays. They run a lot of great stuff. I mean, it would really be that was all there to make it look all shiny and new and great and wonderful. But the bottom line is he would have been dealing not only with LeBron, but the Bronny crap and everything else had he gone there. So, and listen, my cynicism of the NBA does come not only from what I do know about the way the league is operated, but also what I could see during the Jordan era upon his return. Those were the years I was doing NBA basketball for Turner and was also doing the Hawks and the Braves in Major League Baseball in the mid-'90s. And, when you went to a Braves game or you went on the road with the Braves, it was like check your ego in at the clubhouse door with Bobby Cox and John Schuerholz. That was an operation that was just one of the best I've ever been around. But when you were dealing with the NBA and you got on the charters, and this was even with the great Lenny Wilkins as coach, you definitely saw, the headline guys sit in the front, the guys that are 10, 11, and 12, the Tyrone Corbins of the world, they're moving to the back of that airplane, okay? It was already happening. The fact that players did not associate, and those were all good guys for the most part. I mean, we're talking Grant Long, we're talking, Koncak, Mookie Blaylock. These were good guys. They couldn't get past the second round in the NBA playoffs. They'd win 51 or 52 every year. But, that you could see this happening. I was there right before they made the deal with Danny Manning and the Clippers and Dominique Wilkins. And, Dominique was the star of that team. And when he left, it was a crushing blow to a lot of people in Atlanta. And the fans there would never let the Hawks get past it. So I saw some of that at a lesser level during that period of time, fellas. I did. But college basketball is going through so much right now and is so much more vulnerable than college football, all right? And this is an institution and a league that is basketball-centric. And if UConn can't be what UConn is, it's horrible for the league, but it's devastating for the school. So this was a huge decision that had, impact that will echo throughout the remainder of the next few years. It's going to last for a while. And college basketball, college athletics in general, really needed it. We've got a long, hot summer between now and the time toe meets leather and college football gets underway. And there's a lot of unrest about what's going on there. And realignment's not over. And they got to figure out what to do with the litigation that's all out there. The Big East was openly upset about the settlement that was made, and understandably so, because, look, they know when it comes to football, they're a non-entity. UConn does play as an independent, but no one else does, and yet they're being asked to pony up some cash. I mean, there's just a lot going on that made this decision by and again, I know it sounds like I'm hyping it up maybe too much, but I'm not. I'm telling you, this was an important decision that affected every aspect of college athletics. And we're talking about a league, by the way, that's still in the midst of trying to do a new television deal. I don't need you guys know that.
Yep.
And having UConn as a major player and holding on to Dan Hurley for a league that's already lost Jay Wright just after he had been to multiple Final Fours and won 2 of them over a 6-year span, boy, oh boy, they needed this.
We were looking at a lot of the salaries in comparison, not only on the NBA side, but also the NCAA side. We found out that Coach Hurley is right around 7th in the country, and this is, not including any of the private schools where we don't get numbers from. But right. I was always wondering, just like what this means for recruiting in the next couple of years as we see Hurley right in the 7th spot. He has flirted with this. He has said he wouldn't mind being an NBA coach, and that kind of makes me nervous for the 2025 class of seniors that are coming out. What would UConn have to do to really solidify a deal where we're not going to be flirting with this kind of thing every year?
Well, I think you're flirting with it whether you give an extension on him or not. Okay? I don't think that there's any amount of money that UConn could give him that would not allow for a buyout that a franchise could get. As I suggested today, I mean, if you read it, you know what I'm talking about. Why take the Lakers when you could take the Celtics? Better organization, better leadership, or the Knicks, better organization, at least now, and with better players. If you want to succeed, that's why, guys like Phil Jackson didn't take jobs unless they knew they could win. Okay, that's why they took jobs. And only the creme de la creme get to do that. Everybody else is coming in, and you know that they're on the firing line from the moment they sign the dotted line, because the makeup of the league and the structure financially is such that if you're not in a certain spot, you're not going to win. And the Lakers were not going to win, at least not as quickly as Dan Hurley would have wanted them to. But in the case of college basketball, I think it's just and UConn in general, I think you want to get a new deal done. I think you do want to get him extended, and for maybe a little more than he's currently making per year, but it doesn't have to be a heck of a lot. But in truth, I don't know that recruiting now is as big a deal as it was, because he can go and get whoever he wants out of the portal. Let's not forget that this year's UConn team was better than it was the prior season because of what they were able to do in the portal. Getting Spencer actually made them better. And we thought they were going to really be smarting at that position with the loss of Jackson. You think about what he can do in the portal to go along with the recruiting base that is still very strong. I think I think if you concentrate on that too much, you're missing the point.
Got the U.S. Open. We've got Travelers coming up. We'll get you back on to talk some golf very soon, Mr. Brando. We appreciate you on short notice coming on about this breaking news.
Thank you for not asking me about USA women's basketball.
You're welcome.
Oh, no, we were going to ask you about LSU baseball, but we weren't going to ask you about Caitlin Clark.
That was the misery we were going to put you through. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We'll talk soon.
Love you, Brando. Thank you, buddy.
Back at you.
Tim Brando, everybody from Fox Sports. We'll take a quick break, come back, do First Dibs question of the day.